This video is part of a planning series that I've been working on for a while. In the first video in this series, which I'm titling Part 1, you definitely want to watch it in addition to watching this video. Every year I watch that video when it's time for me to start planning, and I am always blown away by how many of the tips I forgot, for one, but also how helpful the tips are for me anyways. The tips in that video are ones that took me over 10 years to compile. So the video is packed with around 20 tips that make a huge difference as you're planning your homeschool year. There's no need for me to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, so I'm not going to cover the tips in this video that I already shared in that one, so you want to make sure to watch it. Today I am basically hoping to put the finishing touches on the upcoming homeschool year for our children. As I make adjustments, I'm just going to take you along with me and show you some real life planning and show you what I've done so that you can see some real planning happening. I have 6 children. My oldest is getting ready to graduate soon, and my youngest is just getting started and in early elementary. As far as I know, I'm one of the very few second-generation homeschool parents here on YouTube with this many children that has been homeschooling through all the grades as long as I have been, who is actually sharing the journey on YouTube. The reason I think that there are not more of us is because high school years are not easy when you have younger children that you're schooling as well. And I'm not gonna lie to you about that because I don't want you to go into it thinking it's going to be easier than it is going to be. I went into it thinking that, and it was a mistake I made. This is part of why I'm sharing the journey here. So my journey might not look like yours, and it's not flawless by any stretch of the imagination, but hopefully there will be some things you can use that will make your journey easier. That's my goal, and that's why I'm doing this. So please don't expect perfection along the way in this video as I show you my finishing touches in the planning process. So in this video, I'm basically going to show you what I've done so far, where I'm at in the planning process, just some fine tuning. So please forgive any background noise you hear. I don't require that my children be absolutely silent when I'm doing my videos because they are kids. They're here 24/7. So you might hear loud footsteps above my head, especially as we start getting close to lunchtime. You're going to hear a lot of dishes clanging, so I will apologize for that now. Okay, so if you already watched part 1, or when you watch part 1, you will see that I start out making sure everybody's aware of what's going on. So I've already done that today. I gave my kids their lists of things to do while I plan, and we had a little morning meeting. My husband and I also bribed them, sort of, so to speak, with s'mores tonight if they stay on task. So there's a little tip for those of you that have to plan with your kids around. In part 1, I talk more about how to plan when your kids are around. This is not a step-by-step planning video, and it is because I plan year-round. One of my biggest secrets is I plan year-round. I'm always adding to and taking away and refining our homeschool plans throughout the year, and I also have to readjust a lot. Homeschooling is something that is part of our lifestyle, and I've learned to fully embrace that, and so I'm always taking notes and making adjustments. I did not come up with all of our homeschool plans for the year in a day, and I want you to know that. I didn't do that and cram it all into this video for you. I think one of the biggest helpful things that I have learned through all of my years of homeschooling is that Rome was not built in a day. It's been a hard lesson to learn, and there is no perfect homeschool plan. There's just good ones. Something I learned about myself is that I have a terrible tendency to overplan. So this year, I'm going to underplan just a little bit. I'm going to leave room for assignments along the way. I am using a simple planner this year. This is by MARDEL. I used it last year as well. You guys, I'm not crazy about this planner. It's not perfect, but it is the best one that I have been able to find so far. It only has enough space for 6 children, so if you're a larger family than that, you're going to need to get more than one, or get planners for your older kids, which is what I have done. So although this planner has space for 6 children, I have additional planners as well. I have one for each one of my high schoolers. So both of my high schoolers have their own student planner, and those 2 are from MARDEL. I purchased the undated planner this year thinking it would be a little different than it is, and I'm a little disappointed because this one still had more than I wanted it to when it comes to dates. We do year-round homeschooling, or we are returning to that this year. So I wanted to be able to put my own dates in. And what I didn't like about this planner is that it still separates the weeks within the months. I was kind of hoping for something a little more adjustable. Another thing that I don't like about this is that it lists the days of the week at the top. And I was hoping to be able to put those in myself since we do not always school on days Monday through Friday. Sometimes we have activities that are school related that we would like to chart that happen on the weekends. I thought about getting a planner that you print your own off of Etsy, but I prayed about it and I landed on this one again. So if you're going to use this planner, I recommend watching MARDEL's tutorial on it, which I will link to in the comments below. I want to start everything out just by sharing towards the end of this video. I'm going to have one super simple hack. If all of these planners and all of this stuff that you're seeing here is just too much for your brain, I get it. At the end, I'm going to show you a super simple hack. In this scene, one of the first things I'm doing is I am creating a cozy environment, which is one of my tips in part 1. I am lighting a candle and I'm now pulling out my planner from the previous year and my planner for the coming year. I also need to have our family planners when I'm doing this because, of course, homeschooling overlaps into family life, and I need to be able to mark off all of the events we have coming up that I know of for the upcoming year. And this is classic ADHD homeschool mom planning here. I got my planners pulled out, realized I don't want to plan on top of the map because I put these maps down thinking they were laminated when I bought them, and the lamination is not waterproof, which I thought it was when I bought them. So I haven't been able to have my tea or coffee at the table since I put these down, and so today I decided before I start this process, I am going to pick up these maps and put them in their frame. Been meaning to do it for a week, but these maps were like $26. They are printed front and back. They're so beautiful, and I do not want to spill tea on them. I am going to be putting these maps on the wall over here. I love how this wall turned out, but I want a change for the upcoming school year, so I am going to be changing that out. And on that note, you guys, I want to say something about my homeschool area. I have a special message for those of you that do not have a homeschool room or a very adequate homeschool space at the end of this video, so please stick around for that. I think it will help uplift and encourage a lot of you that have no homeschool room or very small spaces to homeschool in. And to those out there, I know there's those of you out there that are kind of critical of having a homeschool space like this. For those out there that would leave comments along those lines, I just want to say that for me, having ADHD, having a legit homeschool room helps me tremendously to separate tasks without having this space. For myself, I found I was constantly overwhelmed. Everything ran into and overlapped with each other so badly that I wasn't able to focus. And so that has been my struggle in not having a homeschool space. We actually do homeschooling in all of the rooms in our house, but this is where the majority of the schooling does happen. And it is the place that is designated for most of the schoolwork for most of the kids. But please stay tuned to the end of this video for the special message I have for those of you homeschooling in far less than what feels adequate spaces. I want to show you guys something that's been helping me with my planning this year. I like colorful pens. They just help my brain, probably because the ADHD, and that's a thing I've read. Anyways, I found erasable highlighters and erasable colored pens. So I'm going to show you that these actually do work. They're quite amazing. Very effective. The only way you can tell that anything was ever there is there's a little bit of an indentation in the paper. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys these. They are just phenomenal. The only downside to these highlighters is that you can highlight and then you can go along and you can erase it, which is awesome. I mean, it makes it go away completely. And the only downside is that if you're really indecisive like I am, you can't go back over it and highlight it again. It disappears if you try. That is where I think that these erasable pens have an advantage because you can go back as many times as you need. Write it in, erase it, write it back in, erase it, however many times you need. For the 3 of my children that are in middle school and elementary school, I bought these undated planners, and I learned that with planners, the trick to getting it to work for your younger kids is to make sure they're undated. But these are one of the keys that I have found to helping my children become more independent. I like to have them undated because with undated, if we have a few days where we don't have school, we don't have pages in there that are just empty, wasted, taking up space. You get way more bang for your buck with these. Also, these These ones are super duper cheap. I think they were less than $4 a piece. Another advantage to them being undated is it helps children learn how to recognize what day it is and months and date and how to write dates out. These ones have a little space at the end of the page where they show cups of water to help children remember to drink enough water during the day as well. If you want your children to learn independence and executive functioning skills in their school, this is a really good way to ease them into that. I have tried using dated planners for them before, and it worked for my child that was 10 at the time, but not the younger ones. Undated is definitely a key, especially if you are a little bit more relaxed or if, you know, life happens and you're a more go with the flow type of a homeschooler.
A bigger scale, the world in hands as we go.
If you are brand new to homeschool planning, what I suggest doing is starting out with a full 12-year plan. And basically to do that, this is one of my children's. And you want to start with whatever age they are. So yours might only be, you know, like this section in here. It might not be all 12 years, but it's super easy to do. It only takes like 5 minutes. Essentially what you want to do is I would go to a site like fearlesshomeschool.com, download their list of homeschooling subjects. Also, check out your state requirements, highlight everything you want to do, make yourself a spreadsheet like this, for example. Just write on the side over here everything you want them to take. Then go through and you can mark on your sheet here the years you want them to take it. So you would want them to take this in whatever the grades are here. And this is a really good way to create a sheet like this. You can go and after you're done with this, you can do it on the computer or put it all on the computer and then print it out and make adjustments to it however often you need to. I will tell you, I have made probably at this stage at least 10 adjustments to this particular child's. So always give yourself freedom. But you know, this is what's going to save you from getting all the way to like 8th grade and saying, oh no, you know, we forgot to teach poetry, for example, or let's say important core subjects that are required by the state. And so this is one way that you can make sure you're teaching them everything on your list that you want to make sure to teach them. Going over a list like this is also going to help you if there are certain things that you didn't know you wanted to teach. So this is a great way to get started with your planning. Starting about January each year, I start going over my master list and then I just start taking notes. And what I like to do is I take notes and I put them in my current planner. I would show you the ones in my current planner, but it's got my children's names in it, and I like keeping those more private. But let me see if I do have one here that doesn't have the names on it. I do not, so I'm just going to show you guys in this one. There is a section in here that they have for future planning, and it's at the end of the planning section right here. So you can write your plans for the upcoming school year in here. The end of each month also has a place for future planning, and maybe you don't have a planner like this, but maybe you have a different one, but I'm sure it has a place where you can do basically the same thing. Anyways, this is where all of my plans go into. So I have my master list here, and starting in January, I start taking notes of the things I want to do differently or change, and I just write them in my future planning section. And then I start filling in for the year. But before I can start filling out these pages for the year, there's a very important step that I have learned to take, and I had to get counseling from other homeschool moms that have been there, done that, in order to figure out how to navigate that. And what it is this here. This right here is how you can make sure you get all your goals accomplished in time. So what I do is starting around February every year, I send out basically messages to all the family members that I know are going to be wanting to visit. And I find out how many are coming to visit, how many places we want to go. I start planning our off time in the summer, which is only about a month. And I find out all of the holidays that I want to take off. And I get a good idea of where I want my breaks through the year. I've learned that with family members, I need to be really specific and tell them, okay, we're off from this time to this time. So if you want to come visit, this is the month that you can come. I learned that for ourselves, if I let family and friends come any old time, we could end up losing half the school year. So we can't do that. And I learned from other large family mothers that have been there, done that, that when you have so many kids, you can't do that anymore. You basically need to tell others when is a good time for them to come. So that is one thing that we do, with some exceptions, not very many. Like I do make an exception for my 80-something-year-old grandmother, okay, because I feel like she's earned it. Once you have an idea of when all your off time is, you can use that to map out the times and the weeks that you're going to be teaching. Another thing that I do is I don't give everybody, like an endless amount of time to get back to me. I tell them I need to know within, like 2 to 3 weeks. So I have everybody that's coming, I have everything lined out, and I messed this up. Remember when I said I was indecisive and I can't go back and re-highlight? So this one is not actually accurate. This is what I have. I went online. I would suggest doing this too. Before you write in here, I would suggest going online and getting a blank copy of calendars. I've got a couple neat ones here that I found by papertraildesign.com. They had really pretty calendars, and I printed a whole bunch because I knew I'd be messing more up. Anyways, I went through, this is my mock-up of what I would like the upcoming school year to look like. So what I'm going to do now is I've got the first quarter, second quarter, third, and fourth. Of course, the high schoolers only going to have first and second semesters, but I am going to start going into further detail. I'm going to make sure I have planned all of these teaching times. So I've got independent school days in here, and I've marked all of them off. I have also outlined the days that I will be teaching. All of these peach colored days are the days that I'm going to be teaching, and I marked off the times that we're not doing school. So we're not going to be doing school most of July. The kids will be doing probably some independent things. Some of them are actually going to be doing math through the summer, but the weekends I have empty at this point. I also have a lot of Fridays off. Now with those Fridays, what I'm thinking to do on the Fridays, and the reason that they're blank, I'm probably going to come through with another color highlighter here. Fridays are going to be the days where kids are going to do delight-directed learning. I am not really for unschooling, not for my family anyways, but I do believe in delight-directed learning. And I believe that kids have to have some delight-directed learning in order to learn to love learning. Also, in order to learn to learn. In order to learn to learn. Yeah, you have to learn how to learn and appreciate learning. And delight-directed learning is definitely the key to teaching kids how to love learning and how to learn. I'll probably just write it in right now. These are the delight-directed learning days. So what I'm going to do is I'll just tell the kids, I want you to pick something that you want to study today, and at the end of the day, report back to me. And of course, I'll be following up throughout the day. This will give me a break on those days to do things that I have to do. So we'll call those the DDD days. And I wrote really sloppy. I'll probably just redo that with a pen. My Father's World is a 36-week program. I'm going to be doing it in less time. I have done it in less time before. So these peach days are when I'm going to be teaching My Father's World. The purple, again, those are the independent days. Those are the days where the kids will be doing subjects that I don't need help with. We use teaching textbooks. And also for some of the children, I will be having an online language arts program, and they're not going to need my help. So I'll be popping in, I'll be looking over their shoulder. But for the most part, these purple days are going to be days where I just kind of go around and do rotations. And if anybody needs help, I'm there. And again, the peach ones are the days I'm actively really teaching. The other days that are not marked. So for example, Fridays are going to be my days where I work on my business, where I make sure the laundry is getting done and things around the house. Saturdays and Sundays will be the same probably. On the purple days and the green days, the kids will be very much so using this. So I will be assigning certain things, especially on those purple and green days in here. So I say independent learning, it really is for the most part. I will be giving them some direction, and that will be in here. So that's part of what these are going to be for. Is there checklists, the first couple pages, or else actually I might use the last pages, is I'm going to show you something else that tremendously helps with helping your children to be a little more independent. These are checklists. So what I'll be doing is I will have a checklist for them to refer to every day. I'm not going to write it down every single day. So these have worked really well. The only thing is I have to constantly print them out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a master copy that's on the computer at all times. It's going to be printed out. And this is last year's, by the way. But anyways, it's going to have all of the subjects that for each child. There's a different one for each child because they're all in such different levels. But here is where I have all of the things they need to remember to do each day. We got math, language arts, spelling and writing, Awana Bible lesson, window on the world. Anyways, you get the gist. I'll make a master one because I know from experience these books are going to get lost from time to time. So I'm going to have a master copy of this so I can do printouts whenever I do need and fall back on that. But I'm going to be putting this in here and I'm going to start with the very last page. And the reason for that is I know that summer and fall, probably summer especially, is going to be different from fall. So on this page, I will have this as the summer schedule. Here, I will have the fall one so that we can probably just rip this out if we need to, or maybe just keep it for records. This will be the fall schedule because it's going to be different than the winter one. And then I'll have a winter schedule. The winter one will be packed because we even do double school during the winter days. So this will be a winter schedule with these sections. These overwhelm me. I haven't decided if I use them. If I do use these sections, I'll probably fill them in at the beginning of each semester. We're not really doing a whole lot in July, but we are doing some things. I learned years ago, I was reading an article by Scholastic, and it said that kids lose up to 2 to 3 months of math and reading and language arts over the summer break. That's a lot of work. Think about it from your kid's perspective. That's a lot of wasted work for a kid. So we don't like to take that long of a summer break. We like to do things to keep our brain fresh. There's going to be 194 total open school days. That is more than, a traditional school year. Again, we're doing year-round homeschooling, so it's not that many more. I am just going to get the calculator out here and I'm gonna walk you through the process that I use. Now, I don't want to school July. I'm gonna subtract 31. I would like to have June as a buffer month next year. So I'm gonna take that off too. Minus 30, okay? So that leaves me with 303 school days left. But I don't want to homeschool on Sunday and I don't want to homeschool on Saturday. So there's 52 weeks in a year. So we're gonna minus, again, we're gonna minus the Saturdays, 52 Saturdays, minus 52 Sundays. Okay, what do we have? We have 199. I want to be finished by May 23rd or 24th. So we're going to minus those days right there, and we're just going to minus 4 days. Okay, that leaves us about 195 or 194. That's what I came up with, 194. That's how many open school days we have. So that's great. That's still more than, like a typical school year. But as you can see, it's not that many more. Typical school year is 180 days, and I've got 194 here. This tells me how many days I have open and free. These are the days I school, and then I'm going to have, I'm going to show you guys something here. I have all of these days around Thanksgiving marked off. I have marked off for 3 weeks break for myself in December. Okay, the kids are still going to be doing independent studies up until the 15th, and then we'll do we're going to be doing like Christmas, different activities that are going to be school related still. So that's why I still have these days marked off. You want to make sure you remember to mark off your holidays, you guys. And then also February is a major burnout month for homeschool moms worldwide. So what I did this year is I learned from last year. Last year was really hard. So what I did is I marked off a full week in February where I can take a week off and just recharge, regather, replan, work on my homeschool plans for the upcoming school year. Part of why we're returning back to year-round homeschooling so that I can take Fridays off and the kids can have some more free time of their own instead of cramming everything into just a few months and having so few time to just recharge. So what we're planning to do is we're starting at the beginning of August. We are not starting at the end of August like traditional school calendars. And then we are going to be using June as that buffer month. We usually do need to use June when we do year-round homeschooling. Now these months in usually usually October through into the beginning of April, there are really heavy school days where we find it's easy to even double up lessons in the day. And it's still accomplishable as long as we get an early start. If we get a later start, no, it's not possible to double up a day. But as long as we start by around 8:30, we can double up easily and get done with that 180 school year in less time. So I'm going to show you how that works now. I'm just going to use this book for an example. This is a language arts and literature. It's for level 2. As you go up the levels, I think they increase in the amount of lessons. But for example, this book only has 120 lessons. That's a lot less than 180. We can easily fit 120 language arts lessons into that 192 total open school days. See what I mean? See how easy it is to fit everything in and get it done with just a little bit of forethought and planning. So that is essentially what I'm doing today. I am going through, I am finding how many lessons are in my children's upcoming curriculum choices, and I'm going to be mapping them out in the new planner. And again, this year I'm only going to plan a quarter at a time. I'm going to get a general plan for the entire year, but then I'm going to just plan it a quarter at a time. And once again, I've already made all of the curriculum choices and planning. I've been doing that, working on that since January, especially in February, because all the good sales usually start around February, March, and April. So all I need to do is transfer the curriculum choices that I've already made from this book to the new book and work out the math, figure out how many days and which days I want to put them in, which weeks I want to put them into. As I'm planning, I discovered why these pages don't work for me. And it's just how every homeschool is unique. It only does 36 weeks, and I just counted, and duh, I don't do a 36 school week year. I do almost all the weeks. I got a 39 week school year planned out here, and of course, the July and June aren't even counted in that, but we're still doing school, and that's why these don't work. I wish this area was just way more customizable. I am trying really hard to be super organized and intentional this year. I'm trying to use orange for all of the My Father's World things so that whenever I see that color throughout the planner, I know what it stands for just by looking. I don't know how it is for you guys, but I know that for myself, things get pretty busy in our home, and I find that if I don't have the plan fairly detailed, written out, telling me what to do, I will get overwhelmed quickly. And once I get overwhelmed, my mind just shuts down, kind of. And I can't be very effective in anything for that matter. For me, I'm the type of person that once the noise in the day starts, my brain kind of goes on, I don't know what it is. It just kind of goes on autopilot, I guess you could say. And so if I don't have things written out telling me what to do, it's hard for me to think of what needed to be done. And I end up having anxiety that just builds and builds and builds because I know there's things that need to be done, but I can't think of what they were. That's why I have to do like brain dumps. I call them brain dumps, where I just write things down in planners. When I start getting overwhelmed, write down everything that needs to be done. That's why I like to have this detailed. The Bible verse that says, it's where there is no vision, the people perish. And there are so many Bible verses. I could look them up, but I just remembered I have a ton of Bible verses in one of my previous planning videos that kind of underscore the importance of planning. Of course, you can only go so far with planning because life does happen and only God knows the future. There's that as well. But I find that for myself, if I have a good plan, the day is more likely to go as planned, and I'm more likely to be productive in the day when I have a more solid plan. So I think it works both ways. I think we need to always be, willing to roll with the punches and in prayer that God helps us to deal with what He has planned for the day. But I think that we also need to do our part and try to be mindful with the hours that He's given us, if that makes sense. On that note of how only God really knows the future, and that sometimes our plans are, in vain and futile. That's why I like to use the erasable pens and highlighters. Something I've learned through the years is that when you are just getting started with homeschooling, so I would say as long as you need to, but definitely the first couple years, for me it probably took 5 or 6 years though. I've got some neurodivergent kids in the mix though, so I know that has a lot to do with it. But I learned to start 2 weeks early. So if the school year is going to take me, 36 weeks to finish, I will definitely block out and plan 38 weeks. I learned to start early because that first 2 weeks, starting back to school, especially if you were off for a while, is usually brutal. That's all I can say. It's hard. It's rough on the kids. It's rough on the mom. And a lot of times there's a lot of reading that you did not plan on doing. For example, the language arts program we use, there's at least like a couple days worth of reading on the teacher's part. A lot of people jump in. They don't realize, oh, I am going to have to read all this. So they plan to start on a certain week, like maybe say August 29th, and it ends up being September 5th or 12th before they can even start because they had reading to do, but they didn't know until they opened the curriculum. So I learned to start 2 weeks early. I also learned to plan in buffer time, lots of buffer time for sick days, unexpected things that might pop up. I did want to mention for those using my father's world, when I say double up, I don't mean double up every day. So we're not going to have to double up every day. We're just basically going to have to do a day's worth of work and then a quarter of the next days to a third of the next days to fit everything in. And it is so easy. Like I said, with my father's world, it is possible and not very difficult to fit the whole week into 3 days if you have to. So I was able to fit, and I can see now this is not going to have any of October in it. So these need to be erased for my father's world. No worries. That's why I got the erasable. Okay, so this one is done for this child. Like I said, you guys, I am only doing 1 quarter at a time. Once I get started, and if I actually do get started on this date, maybe I'll start early. Maybe something will happen and we'll end up starting a week later and I'll have to go into June over here. So I'm just doing 1 block at a time, and I'm going to plan it closer to when it's actually time so that I can play with all of these dates as much as I need to, as many times as I need to. And all through the year, like I said, I'm always calculating and recalculating to make sure we are done with all of the curriculum we would like to be done with, ideally by the end of May. So here I'm just putting in the data for the next child. All right, mamas out there, I always worry when I make these videos. I worry so much that for some of you, this is overwhelming. I want to share something with you. For those of you that all of the planners and everything is just too much for, okay? All right, I promised a super simple hack for figuring out how to get done with all your school in a certain amount of time and for making sure you get it all done. Simply look at your course description, look and see how many lessons are, okay? So in this one, we've got 120 lessons. Get a simple planner or a simple calendar, highlight the weeks you plan to teach, or you can go through and just cross out and block off like I did here. You can see I block off the months and the weeks I don't want to teach. So you just block them off, okay? Block off holidays, block off some weekends, block off an extra random week here and there so you got plenty of time. Total up all those weeks. Let's say you come up with 36 weeks, okay? Take that 36 weeks. Actually, let's make it a little more realistic. Let's make it 38 weeks, okay? We're going to take that 120 lessons that there are included in this book, okay? And we're going to divide that by the 38 weeks we would like to complete our school lessons within. What do we have? 3.15. So you need to do less than 4 lessons a week to get done in 38 weeks to complete everything within the time frame you've blocked off. So then what I like to do is I like to write that down. So I'm just going to write we're going to round up and say 3.16, like somebody's going to do 3.16 of a lesson, right? 3.16 lessons. And I actually do this in addition to all of this. But anyways, just stick it in the beginning of the book, or you can write it in if you're afraid that sticky note's going to get lost. Every few weeks, reevaluate, make sure you're still on track. But this is how you can get done and have a very loose plan and still complete all of the important core subjects that you would like to complete in time. Last hack for the easily overwhelmed. Make yourself a simple checklist for your kids. A simple checklist of each subject you want them to do each day. And then you can reverse plan. If you're not very good at planning in advance, you can reverse plan. And if you just use a simple calendar, or I'll show you my planner here, you can just go through on your days, and then all you're going to need is just a calendar or a planner, and once a week, mark down the days that you did school. Keep the checklist with that calendar, and it will serve as an attendance record and a record of what you did that year. And that is probably the most simple way that I know of to make sure you have a record and to have a plan. Also makes it nice for those that aren't great with planning to see, okay, we're getting enough done. We are doing enough. It's nice when you can visually see that. Otherwise, you might be one of those people that always feels behind. And that's just an awful feeling. And for most of us homeschoolers that are even half or 3/4 trying, we're doing more than what they would be getting in a public school setting. I thought I had all of the curriculum decided on, but I had some holes. I missed some things, which makes me really glad I'm going through this right now. I just had to order more books that I forgot that I needed. Anyways, I'm going through right now and I'm just listing all of the subjects for each child. I'm listing the subject and then the curriculum we're using, and then I'm filling in just the first section here so we know when we're starting with a general idea of when we're ending with each subject. Okay, this whole quarters thing, it has me all kinds of discombobulated. After much erasing, I figured out how to use these sections or how I want to use them. So we have about a 40-week school year that we are working with, as opposed to, actually it's 41 weeks. It's 41 weeks that we're working with. So what I'm going to do on all the sheets, and this is where I wish I had just bought a planner off of Etsy that I could customize or just made my own for this section. It would be easier if I made my own. The only reason I am doing this and going through this trouble is because I do like it to be bound in this book the way that it is, because then I won't lose the sheets. So I like them being attached in here where I always will know where they are. And that's the only reason that I went through all this trouble. But I just took these last weeks right here and I divided each one and I wrote in the extra dates. So now I have this outline and I'll just be copying it onto the rest of these pages. This way it'll be nice because all I'll have to do, and this is the entire reason I'm doing this, is so that, let's say I am in October or September and I'm trying to plan the week ahead. I want to be able to look somewhere at a glance and know what is for that week for each child. And by filling in these spaces like this, it makes it easier to do that. And that's the reason I'm going through all of this trouble. I had it right on this one. I should have just left it all. I'll probably do it a little bit neater than I had it over here, right there. This one is a little sloppier. I was just penciling it in to see if it would work, and it will work. And this way, everything will be at a glance, and I won't have to try to figure out when I'm teaching certain things. I'll just be able to look at this and know. For the devotional portion of this video, I promised you guys encouragement for those homeschooling in difficult circumstances. For my first several years of homeschooling, we lived in poverty in less than 1,000 square feet of space. I fit up to 5 kids in that tiny space, and it wasn't fun or easy. Tiny home living is definitely romanticized, but for a homeschool family, it can be really hard. We had a neurodivergent child in the mix too, which is a whole new ballgame than the norm, and it meant that we needed more manipulatives and visuals than the normal. So, minimalism wasn't really an option. I remember one time holding some books we needed, looking around the home for where to put them, and just bursting into tears because of how many times a week I had to go through and declutter and try to create space again. And I was just so tired of having to do that. That's when I knew we needed a homeschool room more than we needed a living room. So I turned our living room into a homeschool room, which is what you're seeing in these pictures. This helped. I just wanted to tell those of you homeschooling through hardships, though, that I get it. Don't lose faith. It's still worth the time with your kids. The hardest thing, but the most important thing, is to keep making those moments count. Pray for better circumstances and never stop believing that you matter to God. He rewards his faithful children, and so keep the faith.
But everything is gonna be alright.